Today on Super Trax, the world's greatest monster trucks are on Long Island, New York. To be specific, Uniondale, New York, getting ready to do battle in the Nassau Coliseum in side-by-side United States Hot Rod Association monster truck race action. But before they can go inside and get to war, they've got to be prepared for battle outside, not only with their own pit crews, but they have to pass inspection by the United States Hot Rod Association tech officials. Now, right now, you're actually watching the weigh-in process. They will actually weigh each truck per wheel. 4 separate weight jacks are now recording the weight for each wheel, and indeed, the U.S. Hot Rod Association officials then add up the weight that is being displayed by each scale, and each truck must total a minimum of 10,000 pounds.
93.35.
Y'all pulling my leg.
No, that's what he added up.
Better re-add.
Dennis Anderson with a little problem, coming up about 700 pounds short. So Dennis is going to have to go hang about another 700 pounds of weight since he only came in at 93.45. Again, every truck's got to weigh at least 10,000. We'll see him in action later. Also today on Super Trax, the raw power from the Houston Astrodome with the 7,200-pound super modified tractors and the exciting hot rod pullers. Today on Super Trax. Hi again, everyone. I'm Scott Douglas, and the superstars of monster truck racing are ready to go into side-by-side action. But first, we have to set the table, if you will. We've got to get the field qualified to determine who races who in the opening round of competition. So Jackie Willman brings Taurus to the line as our first qualifier at Uniondale and the Nassau Coliseum. Outstanding leap for Jackie Willman and the Taurus GMC. Once again, Jackie Willman with a great shot. Barely touching any cars at all as he was able to get a ton of power and a great run at 1.86 seconds for Taurus. Now, Nick Rossi's Outlaw Ford. The Outlaw out of Pennsauken, New Jersey, obviously a bit slower. We'll get the time momentarily, as Rossi never really seemed to get a lot of power generated off the start line. Still, he safely qualified and will be into the field with a time of 2.88 seconds. Now, the defending champion of the world, the United States Hot Rod Association champ, Fred Schaefer's Barefoot Chevrolet out of Pontoon Beach, Illinois. Another outstanding leap. Like Taurus, he virtually jumped over the entire stack of cars. There you see it, just the back wheels hitting on those final 2 cars. That should mean a good time for Barefoot, and indeed it is. Barely off Taurus's time. It's 1.93 for Fred Schaefer's Barefoot. Now, Jim Kramer and the Bigfoot Ford out of St. Louis, Missouri. Another excellent qualifying shot. We'll see if it's enough to beat the Chevy, the GM-powered machine, but the Ford looked good as Bigfoot leaps to a time of 2.14 seconds, third best so far. Now you see 2 popular Chevrolets coming into the Nassau Coliseum. We'll watch Carolina Crusher and the Gravedigger in their qualifying paces. Crusher is staged. Gary Porter from Wadesboro, North Carolina, will be next on the clock. Excellent run for Gary Porter. Up the ramp and then watch him shoot it out the back end. Like Barefoot and Taurus, barely touching the last car. It's a good one, but not enough to knock off Taurus. 2.07 for the Crusher. Now, Dennis Anderson and the Gravedigger Chevy panel truck. Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, the home for Dennis Anderson as he's ready to qualify. Look at Dennis Anderson get her shut down after completely leaping the stack of cars in the Coliseum. Barely made contact with the last car. 2.13 is the time. So Taurus still the fast qualifier at 1.86. Now, the outstanding Ford competitor from Woodstock, Illinois, Rob Fuchs, and First Blood. Another good-looking run. We'll see where that puts him in the field on the replay. Rob Fuchs launches First Blood to a successful qualifying run in the Nassau Coliseum. The time for Rob Fuchs in the First Blood Ford, 1.99. And now another Ford, Michael Botters and the Black Stallion Ford. Today on Super Trax, the world's greatest monster trucks are on Long Island, New York. To be specific, Uniondale, New York, getting ready to do battle in the Nassau Coliseum in side-by-side United States Hot Rod Association monster truck race action. But before they can go inside and get to war, they've got to be prepared for battle outside. Not only with their own pit crews, but they have to pass inspection by the United States Hot Rod Association tech officials. Now, right now, you're actually watching the weigh-in process. They will actually weigh each truck per wheel. 4 separate weight jacks are now recording the weight for each wheel, and indeed, the U.S. Hot Rod Association officials then add up the weight that is being displayed by each scale, and each truck must total a minimum of 10,000 pounds.
93.35.
Y'all pulling my leg.
No, that's what he added up.
Better re-add.
Dennis Anderson with a little problem, coming up about 700 pounds short. So Dennis is going to have to go hang about another 700 pounds of weight since he only came in at 93.45. Again, every truck's got to weigh at least 10,000. We'll see him in action later. Also today on Super Trax, the raw power from the Houston Astrodome with the 7,200-pound super modified tractors and the exciting hot rod pullers. Today on Super Trax. Again, everyone, I'm Scott Douglas, and the superstars of monster truck racing are ready to go into side-by-side action. But first, we have to set the table, if you will. We've got to get the field qualified to determine who races who in the opening round of competition. So Jackie Willman brings Taurus to the line as our first qualifier at Uniondale and the Nassau Coliseum. Outstanding leap for Jackie Willman and the Taurus GMC. Once again, Jackie Willman with a great shot. Barely touching any cars at all as he was able to get a ton of power and a great run at 1.86 seconds for Taurus. Now, Nick Rossi's Outlaw Ford. The Outlaw out of Pennsauken, New Jersey, obviously a bit slower. We'll get the time momentarily, as Rossi never really seemed to get a lot of power generated off the start line. Still, he safely qualified and will be into the field with a time of 2.88 seconds. Now, the defending champion of the world, the United States Hot Rod Association champ, Fred Schaefer's Barefoot Chevrolet out of Pontoon Beach, Illinois. Another outstanding leap. Like Taurus, he virtually jumped over the entire stack of cars. There you see it, just the back wheels hitting on those final 2 cars. That should mean a good time for Barefoot, and indeed it is. Barely off Taurus's time. It's 1.93 for Fred Schaefer's Barefoot. Now, Jim Kramer and the Bigfoot Ford out of St. Louis, Missouri. Another excellent qualifying shot. We'll see if it's enough to beat the Chevy, the GM-powered machine, but the Ford looked good as Bigfoot leaps to a time of 2.14 seconds, third best so far. Now you see two popular Chevrolets coming into the Nassau Coliseum. We'll watch Carolina Crusher and the Gravedigger in their qualifying paces. Crusher is staged. Gary Porter from Wadesboro, North Carolina, will be next on the clock. Excellent run for Gary Porter. Up the ramp and then watch him shoot it out the back end. Like Barefoot and Taurus, barely touching the last car. It's a good one, but not enough to knock off Taurus. 2.07 for the Crusher. Now, Dennis Anderson and the Gravedigger Chevy panel truck. Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, the home for Dennis Anderson as he's ready to qualify. Look at Dennis Anderson get her shut down after completely leaping the stack of cars in the Coliseum. Barely made contact with the last car. 2.13 is the time. So Taurus still the fast qualifier at 1.86. Now, the outstanding Ford competitor from Woodstock, Illinois, Rob Fuchs and First Blood. Another good-looking run. We'll see where that puts him in the field on the replay. Rob Fuchs launches First Blood to a successful qualifying run in the Nassau Coliseum. The time for Rob Fuchs in the First Blood Ford, 1.99. And now another Ford, Michael Botters and the Black Stallion Ford. Obviously, Mike didn't get a whole lot of power generated off the start line. Still, it's a legal qualifying run, and that was all he had to have at this point. The time, 2.55 seconds for Michael Botters and the Black Stallion. So Taurus is the fast qualifier with Barefoot second. Then the First Blood Ford and Carolina Crusher Chevy rounding out the upper half of the qualifiers. Gravedigger barely noses out Bigfoot with Black Stallion and Jersey Outlaw rounding out the field for monster truck action today on Super Trax. Television's most action-packed hour continues. It's Super Trax with the superstars of monster truck racing. First round action. Here's the way they'll go at it in Nassau Coliseum. Gravedigger takes on Taurus. First Blood against Black Stallion. That's a battle of big bad Fords. Then Carolina Crusher takes on the Jersey Outlaw. And it's a foot war. That's right, Barefoot against Bigfoot. We started off with Taurus and the Gravedigger. You talk about high profile. You talk about two of the best known trucks in the world. You've got them in front of you right now. Dennis Anderson, the Gravedigger, Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina. Anderson actually preparing his starting lane. You can see all the mud, all the slop. He's actually rolling it down, packing it down as a roller or a loader would do. His opponent, the young lion, the upstart, Taurus, out of Granite City, Illinois. Jackie Willman takes on the Gravedigger. And look at that finish. How do you like that one? Side-by-side action. The Taurus Gravedigger matchup goes right to the wire. Here they come, and Dennis Anderson's Gravedigger by 0.003 of a second takes the victory over Jackie Willman and Taurus. What a race. Whew. Now a couple of Fords are going to get it on. The Black Stallions, who you're looking at. Michael Botters in the Black Stallion Ford against Rob Fuchs in First Blood. And you can give the victory to Woodstock, Illinois' Rob Fuchs and the First Blood Ford. On the replay, Fuchs with a great hole shot, and he expands the lead from there. The First Blood Ford gets the victory. So we have two of our first round winners, Gravedigger and First Blood. And now, Crusher and Outlaw enter the arena. That'll be our next matchup. You remember before Gravedigger ran against Taurus, he spent a lot of time packing the track down. Brett Kepner caught up with Dennis Anderson to talk to him about that tactic.
He had lane choice, and I looked at his lane. I said, man, I'd like to be in his lane. Mine had soup in it, but I sat there and packed it down pretty good before I ran, and it worked.
Indeed, it did work as Dennis Anderson was able to defeat Taurus in a mild upset because Jackie Willman had set down the fast qualifying time earlier. Ford versus Chevrolet, the Outlaw Ford, the Carolina Crusher Chevy, looking for the green light. All Chevrolet. Gary Porter's Carolina Crusher out of Wadesboro, North Carolina, defeats the Pennsauken, New Jersey-based Outlaw Ford of Nick Rossi, and it was an easy win for the Crusher. Gary Porter goes into the semifinal round of competition. Our final first-round matchup will bring out Fred Schaefer's Barefoot against Jim Kramer and Bigfoot. But in the pit, Brett Kepner has caught up with Rob Fuchs, the first blood driver, who has to take on Gravedigger in the semifinals.
I'm going to keep running the same line I've run all night, and hopefully that's a good lane.
It seems like maybe the starting line on that side is getting down beneath the dirt to concrete. Is that going to be a problem with tire spin?
I think so. The way it felt to me, the truck was spinning really bad off the line anyway, almost like it went sideways before it went forward. So I think I'm going to launch in second gear this time instead of first, and hopefully control the wheel speed.
Minimize the tire speed, sure. What do you do different when you line up against the big green machine that you do against anybody else? Anything?
Pray.
Well, he may be praying. A lot of those prayers get answered. Rob Fuchs and First Blood Ford at the head of the class when you talk about U.S. hot rod monster trucks. And here are two more that join him at the front of the line. Bigfoot, the Ford from St. Louis, and the Barefoot Chevrolet, the defending world champ out of Pontoon Beach, Illinois. This is a heavyweight showdown, and we're about to get ready, although Fred Schaefer has taken off his helmet. I think Barefoot's broken. There is something wrong. Fred Schaefer has taken off the helmet, and he's looking for help. This has absolutely got to be the most disgusting feeling in the world for the defending world champ. All he can do is sit there and watch himself be eliminated by the Bigfoot Ford. Jim Kramer officially gets the win. Barefoot is broken and out of it. Bigfoot will move into the semis. His opponent will be Gary Porter.
I lined up different that time. I went far to the right, and I got lane choice this next run. I'll have Bigfoot. It's going to be a very tough race. I'm going to try to line up like I did that time and try to cut a very close light to take the win.
Let's look once again at how they're going to pair up in the semifinals. Gravedigger will meet First Blood. Carolina Crusher to take on Bigfoot. Two Ford versus Chevy Civil Wars coming up. In an age where it seems like there are domes everywhere, there is still only one original, the Houston Astrodome. And Super Trax takes you inside for the huge 7,200-pound multi-engine super modified tractors. The pulling competition in the Astrodome year in and year out has packed the house and made for some of the most exciting action in U.S. Hot Rod Association history. We expect no less today. The big tractors are ready to go, and we start with the Allison aircraft engine-powered new and improved rambunctious. This is Milt Bergman from Fort Recovery, Ohio, to put down the first pull of the day on Super Trax. A little past the 250 mark, but not a full pull. Let's look at it again on the replay as Milt Bergman puts down a good shot of 263.49. 263.49. That is the distance to beat from Milt Bergman and the new and improved rambunctious. Here's Ken Popham. This is the Outlaw tractor out of Floresville, Texas. Man, that is an expensive run for Popham. Already at a disadvantage with only two engines, battling guys who have 4 and 5 engine combos, and you can see those two engines were not working well. The explosion at the end tells the story, and it's a rough day at the office for Popham and Outlaw. 229.22 and some expensive damage. 3-engine combination now for the Texas Flash. Don Nelson up out of Cat Springs, Texas. Not able to hit the 300-foot mark, but it does appear we may have a new leader. Don Nelson and the Texas Flash getting everything he can on the throttle, pulling it as far as he can down the Astrodome track, and indeed he has taken the lead at 266.87 feet. Now, Robert Elliott and the Fancy Farmer coming at us out of Mayfield, Kentucky. Looks like it takes 4 engines to get it done in Houston. The 4-engine combination of Robert Elliott, the Fancy Farmer, hauls it out of here. It's a full pull, and Robert Elliott is the new leader. Can anybody force him to a pull-off? Probably, because some of the world's best are coming up, like this guy, John Powell, and a very, very powerful machine out of Apex, North Carolina. He just calls it the Powell pulling machine. 4 engines and a ton of horsepower. And he's out of here. John Powell, and Powell Pulling has forced a pull-off. Beautiful run for John and the team from Apex, North Carolina. Well, we now have 2 who have taken it past the 300-foot mark. Let's see if John Heilman and Ohio Gold can become the 3rd to do so. Now you can see Heilman running 5 engines, 2 toward the front, 1 on each side, and the 5th engine sits up back toward the driver. And he's got plenty to spare. Ohio Gold with yet another full pull in Houston. Boy, it didn't even look like John had to take the throttle all the way down. Nice and easy, but it'll be tougher when they reweight the sled for the pull-off. Next up, Dwayne Bergman and Rambunctious 2 out of Fort Recovery, Ohio. He's got to get a full pull to join the pull-off. Allison Aircraft engine power. Not enough to fly out of the Astrodome, as Rambunctious 2 comes up a bit short. The distance, 231.46 feet, 231 and change for Dwayne Bergman and Rambunctious 2 out of Fort Recovery, Ohio. Next up, Dave Walsh, the Irish Challenger out of Mauston, Wisconsin. He needs a full pull. There are already 3 who have taken it out of here, and he's a prime candidate to be the 4th. Oh, look out. He had to let off the throttle. Still, he's coming on. An incredible run for the Irish Challenger as he actually let off the throttle and still had enough power to take it out the other end. That was awesome. The Irish Challenger actually had enough to let off the throttle when he got that big bounce and still record a full pull. So now we have 4 who have made it to the pull-off, and our final competitor would love to make it a 5-some. It's Jim Brockman and Kodiak In-Laws and Outlaws. Yes, indeed. He has taken it out of the Astrodome. Jim Brockman will join the pull-off field. That includes the Irish Challenger, the Fancy Farmer, Powell Pulling, and Ohio Gold. It's a tractor all-star pull-off coming up a little bit later on Super Trax. You can see him right there. Robert Elliott, John Powell, John Heilman, Dave Walsh, and Jim Brockman all recording full pulls. Don Nelson will then finish 6th, followed by the Rambunctious gang in the 7th and 8th spot, and the Outlaw with some expensive breakage rounds out the field in Houston. Of the world's top tractor pulling superstars, They will go now into the pull-off to try and take the championship in the prestigious Houston Astrodome Nationals. We're ready for the pull-off, and those 5 will come at you right now. Robert Elliott will be first up. The Fancy Farmer is out of Mayfield, Kentucky, and he'll set down the distance that the others will try to beat. You can see right there on that pole just how much heavier this sled is. This sled is now a bear. And Robert Elliott, with a lot of bounces, is only able to get it close to the 200-foot mark. It'll be 196.21. That is the distance to beat. Robert Elliott is now the leader. But John Powell will come up next. You can see that right hand fixed to the throttle, and he is ready to lay the hammer down. The Powell pulling tractor out of Apex, North Carolina. The 250-foot mark despite the additional weight. John Powell has laid down a shot that they're going to have to go some to beat. The distance, 264.78. John Powell and Powell Pulling has laid down something that they're really going to have to rear back and draw on that extra reserve to get past. But certainly, everybody that's still to come has the caliber tractor to go by it. The first one to try it is John Heilman at Ohio Gold. Not going to happen for Heilman as he took it past the 200-foot mark, but that was it. The distance is 217.42, 217.42 for John Heilman out of Rockford, Ohio, and Ohio Gold. 2 more to go. Your leader right now is John Powell, but here comes Dave Walsh and the Irish Challenger. And Walsh has been having one of those years where every night he hits the arena, he has got to be considered the favorite. Let's see if he's got enough to win it here in Houston. Appears to the naked eye that he's got it. That mark, that last cone that you saw at the bottom of your screen was marking the distance for John Powell. And indeed, the Irish Challenger has taken the lead. It's a pull of 272.25 feet, 272.25. And Dave Walsh is the new leader with 1 more to go in the pull-off. It's Jim Brockman and the Kodiak In-Laws and Outlaws. He's got to go a long way to take the win in Houston. Let's see if he can get it done. It's a good pull, but it took a great one to win it, as Brockman will come up around the 250-foot mark. Let's make it 251.03. That should land him safely in 3rd, but your winner will be Dave Walsh. The Irish Challenger out of Boston, Wisconsin, whips into Houston and comes away as the Astrodome champion. The Irish Challenger wins it over Powell Pulling by about 8 feet. Then it's the Kodiak In-Laws and Outlaws, Ohio Gold, and the Fancy Farmer. The Monster Truck Final 4 at the Nassau Coliseum, Uniondale, New York, on Long Island. Gravedigger, First Blood, Carolina Crusher, and Bigfoot. The star-studded semifinals are coming at you now on Super Trax. Dennis Anderson from Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, the Gravedigger, and once again, he's in that soupy, sloppy far lane.
He's got lane choice, so I'm going to leave that up to him. As it stands right now, I really don't care which lane I get. I felt like I performed pretty well in the bad lane, so stick me in the good one, I'll do better.
Anderson obviously considers that the bad lane. Rob Fuchs in First Blood did have lane choice because he was the faster qualifier. So the First Blood Ford and the Gravedigger Chevrolet. Too close to call. We'll have to wait till the U.S. Hot Rod officials give us the word. They crossed the finish line together, and now we're being told Gravedigger pulled out the victory. The lights ablazing on the Gravedigger, and Dennis Anderson noses out Rob Bush and the First Blood Ford in a scintillating battle at the Nassau Coliseum. Now, the Carolina Crusher Chevrolet trails the Bigfoot Ford. They'll go to war in a moment, but first, let's get a word from Rob Bush, the driver of First Blood.
It was close. I mean, it was a really good race no matter who got it. Whoever won deserved to win.
Indeed, Gravedigger beat First Blood, but it was just by a matter of thousandths of a second. Gravedigger's in the final. His opponent will be either Bigfoot, the Ford in the far lane, and Jim Kramer from St. Louis, Missouri, or Carolina Crusher, the Chevrolet Gary Porter from Wadesboro, North Carolina, in the lane closest to you. It's time to settle it now at the Nassau Coliseum. A close race, but clearly the winner is Gary Porter's Carolina Crusher. It took him a moment to get started at the starting line. We understand Porter was having transmission problems, and Bigfoot tried to make him wait. Brett Kepner talked with Gary Porter about the starting line problems and the transmission.
The transmission was starting to get hot. I started smelling it, and I thought there for a second, you know, I might burn second gear out of it since I held it up against the converter so tight, but luckily I didn't, and hopefully it'll hold enough so I can come back and win this next round.
You think Kramer knew that you were sitting there with the RPMs up and decided to wait just a couple of seconds before he was ready?
He might have, because he's running the slipper clutch, and the heat doesn't build up in it like it does the Turbo 400, so he may have been hoping that I would burn down on the starting line, but it didn't happen.
What did happen is that Gary Porter has earned a berth in the championship matchup against Dennis Anderson's Gravedigger, but something's going on in Gravedigger's pit.
Obviously, the action here in the Gravedigger pit area is pretty frantic as Dennis Anderson is obviously making some adjustments to the chassis. Dennis, what's the story?
Well, we've been a 4-link bar that run, and we've got another one to put on it, and I won that round, so we're going to come back for the finals.
It didn't look like that rough of a ride. When did it bend?
I've been at the round before. We didn't notice until I got ready to get in the truck, though. Had a little slight bow in it, and it collapsed the tube in that last run.
Porter's got lane choice. Where do you think he's going to put you?
He's going to put me in that sloppy lane I've been running in, but if I can get it hooked up and shifted soon enough, I'll be able to pull it off.
The Gravedigger has defeated First Blood in the semifinals. Carolina Crusher dispatched Bigfoot. It's down to 2, and they're going to settle things in the Nassau Coliseum on Super Track. I guarantee you the fans in the Nassau Coliseum are ready for the finals of monster truck racing action between two of the best-known trucks in the sport, and certainly two of the most impressive pieces of machinery in monster truck racing today. The Carolina Crusher Chevrolet Gary Porter from Wadesboro, North Carolina, and the Gravedigger Chevrolet panel truck Dennis Anderson from Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina. We have seen today a lot of trucks that are new, state-of-the-art, a lot of trucks that are some of the older chassis designs, but here in the final, it is two of the newest pieces of equipment, both with state-of-the-art chassis designs, and one of them is going to walk out of here with the Nassau Coliseum Championship. It'll be Dennis Anderson's Gravedigger with a clear-cut victory over Gary Porter and the Carolina Crusher as the fans whoop it up in the Nassau Coliseum. You look at the replay, and I think the transmission problem clearly got the best of the Carolina Crusher. Dennis Anderson rolls to a relatively easy victory over the Carolina Crusher. Brett Kepner is standing by with Gary Porter. Let's see if it was transmission problem.
And obviously dejected Gary Porter standing next to his truck. Lots of noise. It almost sounded like a fuel delivery problem, like it was starved.
Now, it was electrical. My master switch, I didn't have it pulled on all the way. And when it landed on the cars, you know, it vibrated and shut the truck off and, you know, cost me the race.
That's all it was the master kill switch.
That's all it was, just electrical. You know, it killed the whole system, everything on the truck. And
the pop was just detonation then.
Yeah, the pop was detonation, and, you know, there was nothing I could do at the time, but, you know, we'll try again another day.
Had to be a sickening feeling. It looked, at least initially, like the Gravedigger may have gotten a slight advantage. Both of you were up on the converters, had the RPMs really high, but you were right there with him coming over the cars.
Right, I didn't really hold mine up against the converter like I did the round before because, you know, I started smoking the clutches in second gear, and I didn't want to lose the transmission altogether. I wanted, you know, to hold it up a little bit and be sure to get off the line, and hopefully he would be sleeping, but, you know, it just wasn't my day today.
I tell you, we'll never know exactly what would have happened down at the finish line. You did get a slight reaction time advantage, at least that's what it looked like, with some major problems over there with Porter.
Yeah, I tell you, you know, we were back there thrashing on that 4-link bar. That 4-link bar we were thrashing on, we never changed it. We didn't get it off. but I came out and gave it my best shot, hoping everything would stay together, and it worked for me.
The truck seemed to plant it, the tires very well, and you were up against the converter yourself. Both of you had those motors singing before the green.
Oh, yeah, we were all pumped and ready. You know, he knows that I cut a good light, and he also cuts a good light.
Trax, bringing you the best in United States Hot Rod Association action. Hi again, everyone. I'm Scott Douglas. We're back at the Houston Astrodome with certainly one of the most unique classes of competition on the U.S. Hot Rod Association circuit. If you like classic vehicles, you're going to love the hot rod class. Let's meet the lineup we'll see in Houston. Dan Coelho's beautiful 67 Corvette. Here's the 1950 Mercury of Butch Schultz. We'll see him in action against the likes of Ron Warschkow and the 1934 Chevy Coupe. Bill Romsberg's classic 1957 Chevy. Bobby Johns brings us the hot 56 Thunderbird. Troy Warschkow and the 34 Ford Roadster. Mike Hoff and the 32 Ford Coupe. And how about the 49 Austin of Andy Hoffman? Classic competition. The point here is not just to complete a full pull, but here, these powerful hot rodders actually have to do it quickly. It's not a competition of distance. The full pull is a foregone conclusion. It's how fast can you do it? Oh boy, and as soon as we say that, big problems for the 67 Corvette of Dan Coelho out of Turlock, California. A terrible break. Something went awry on the 67 Corvette, and so he will not have a recorded time. It's simply not a full pull for the 67 Corvette and Dan Coelho. A tough break for that classic. It's officially a DQ. The 1950 Mercury, Butch Schultz, will now put down the first time at the Houston Astrodome in hot rod pulling competition. Slack is out, green on the track. Here comes Schultz. Butch really struggling at the start. That's going to cost him some time. But look at him make up distance and ground at the end. Still, I don't think he's going to be happy because of the start. But once he got it rolling, that Mercury was cooking. The time is 9.14 seconds for Butch Schultz and the 50 Mercury, 9.14. You have to get into the fast four to make it into round two. The competition is set up to eventually get one champion. And first, we've got to eliminate four. Now you're looking at the 56 Thunderbird of Bobby Johns. And he certainly has pushed himself in front of the first two we've seen, because that was an outstanding run, and he didn't have the problems at the start the Mercury had a little earlier. The time for the 56 Thunderbird is 7.26 seconds. That is now the time to beat, but more importantly, he hopes that's enough to get him into the round of four. The second round will just be four of these hot rodders left, and it's the fastest four from the first round. Chevy Coupe, 34 variety. He calls it flashback. Ron Warschkow. Time to beat is 7.26. Ooh, a little bit of a funny hop at the beginning, but he's cranking a nice run out. The 34 Chevy Coupe lays down an outstanding run, and it will be our new fast time, 7.15 for Ron Warschkow and the 34 Chevy Coupe that he calls flashback. And if he wouldn't have had that bobble at the beginning, no telling how quick that run would have been. Here comes Bill Romsberg and the 57 Chevy. Really seemed to be laboring and didn't get a whole lot of top end speed. Romsberg's time a little slower than the last couple we've seen. It'll come in at a little bit over 8 seconds, apparently. 8.10 for the 57 Chevy of Romsberg out of Alverton, Pennsylvania. Boy, is that a beauty. 57 Chevrolet. The time again, 8.10. The time to beat remains the 7.15, the Chevy Coupe of Warschkow. And the time to beat to make the fast four, you've got to beat Butch Schultz's 9.14. Here comes Troy Warschkow. This is the Ford Roadster, 34 variety. He calls it Impulse. trying to beat the 7.15 time of the 34 Chevy Coupe. Nice smooth start. This is a good-looking run. Superb run for Impulse. Troy Warshkow, the 34 Ford Roadster. That may be the best we've seen. Let's look at it again on the replay. You can tell right off the start that he was going to have a good one. Nice smooth start, no problems getting off the line. And did he pick up speed at the back end? And it is the fastest time so far, 5.19, the 34 Ford Roadster Impulse, Troy Warshkow. Now, Mike Hoff brings out the 32 Ford Coupe. Boy, are all these hot rodders classics or what? These are some beautiful, beautiful machines. You have to beat 8.10 to make the fast four. 5.19 is the fast time. Another good start. Now he's got a little bit of a hop in the middle of the track. But the back end looks superb, and Mike Hoff should clearly make it into the fast four and the second round. There's the little bounce, but he didn't let it deter him. He probably had to let off of it just a bit. But after that, Hoff really was able to pound the pedal to the metal, and he gets an outstanding time. Second best so far, 6.27. He's safely into the second round. And our final first round competitor, look at that baby. 1949 Austin. This is Andy Hoffman. Time to beat if you want to be the fastest, 5.19. Time to beat to make it into the fast four, 7.26. That'll get you into the second round. And it's just not happening at all for the Austin of Andy Hoffman. Well, it doesn't sound good, and you can see really not getting any speed generated. Just not a great run there for Andy Hoffman. As we look at the Austin again, you can see it's just not hitting for him. And the time is quite slow at 9.77. So Andy Hoffman not able to crack into the second round. There will be four coming back for our second round of competition, and they will be the 34 Ford Roadster of Troy Warshkow, Mike Hoff's 32 Ford Coupe, Ron Warshkaw's 34 Chevy Coupe, and Bobby John's 56 Thunderbird. The 57 Chevy ends up in the number 5 spot. The 50 Mercury, the 49 Austin, and the 67 Corvette rounded out the first round. Back for round number 2 at the Astrodome on Super Trax. And first up, it'll be Impulse, the 1934 Ford Roadster of Troy Warshkow. Again, he's so smooth at the start. A little hop in the middle, but he's got it going. Good looking run. Hold on. Right out the back door of the Astrodome. Literally. Troy Warshkow and the 34 Ford Roadster. Impulse indeed. Wow. The time, 6.20. Excellent run for Troy Warshkow. Let's watch it again. You can see the hop in the middle cost him a little bit of time, but really not much. And he is flat hammering down when he hits that finish line. 6.2 official time. That's the time to beat. In round 2, the whole point is to be one of the fastest 2. Then you'll get to come back in the championship matchup. The 32 Ford Coupe of Mike Hoff is next up. Trying to beat 6.20 of Troy Warshkow. A lot of speed at the finish line for Mike Hoff and the 32 Ford Coupe. Should be very, very close to the time of the Ford Roadster Impulse that has a 6.2 a moment ago. Let's look at the replay, and as he comes down, Mike Hoff and the 32 Ford Coupe has actually taken the lead. The time, 6.16, and Mike Hoff, the 32 Ford Coupe, now has the lead over Troy Warshkow and the Ford Roadster. But the bottom line is to be the fast 2. So both of them still could be knocked out, or they both could be alive. Here's the Chevy Coupe, 1934 Flashbacks. The name of it, Ron Warshkow. Kicking up a lot of chalk line dust, a pretty good run. Let's see if it's enough to get underneath the 6.20 that it takes to make the finals. While we wait for the time, we're going to look at a replay once again of the 34 Chevy Coupe. Ron Warschkow calls her flashback. You can see he's kicking up a lot of dust from the chalk line. That's not engine smoke, that's from the chalk. And it's a good run. However, not good enough to make it into the finals. The 1934 Chevy Coupe known as Flashback, Ron Warschkow putting down a time of 7.08. You got to beat 6.20 to make it into the finals, and you got to beat 6.16 to be the fastest. Here's the 56 Ford Thunderbird of Bobby John. Never really got a lot of top-end speed. I don't think that's going to be enough to crack the finals. He had to get under 6.20, and at least to the naked eye, it certainly didn't look like it. The classic 56 Thunderbird looking good, but not looking fast enough on this date in the Houston Astrodome with a time of 7.31. Bobby Johns and the 56 Thunderbird eliminated. So that means into the finals, it'll be the 32 Ford Coupe of Mike Hoff and the 34 Ford Roadster known as Impulse of Troy Warschkow. The Chevy Coupe is third, the Thunderbird fourth. And now they go side by side, and the clock no longer matters. It's can you beat the man you're starting against. Impulse, that's the 34 Ford Roadster closest to you, Troy Warschkow, side by side against Mike Hoff and that bright red 32 Ford Coupe. The Ford Coupe has the slack out, and Mike Hoff is ready to go. Now closest to you, the 34 Ford Roadster will take the slack out of the chain. He's ready to go. Showtime! The advantage goes to the 32 Ford Coupe, and it will be a victory for Mike Hoff and the 32 Ford Coupe as he defeats the 34 Ford Roadster of Troy Warschkow. Let's watch it again on the replay. They both got a good start, but about 20 feet into it, it was clear that Mike Hoff was able to generate a little bit more power in that 32 Ford Coupe, and Hoff holds on for a solid car-length victory to win the hot rod pull at the Houston Astrodome here on Super Trax. Mike Hoff coming out and taking a bow in that 32 Ford Coupe to claim the victory among the classic cars in what is the newest of the U.S. Hot Rod Association divisions, and certainly rates as one of the most unique. It's kind of the new old cars here on the U.S. Hot Rod Association circuit. The hot rods actually are 1967 or older. That's the way the rules read in the U.S. Hot Rod Association rule book. And when you consider how popular hot rodding is and rod runs are all over the country, you'll see street rod shows in virtually every city in this country, and it's become a craze, if you will, this classic car phenomenon, and now it's a part of the United States Hot Rod Association. So when you see a U.S. Hot Rod Association event coming to your town, look for the hot rod pullers. You're really going to enjoy them, and certainly, as we saw in the Houston Astrodome, the competition is going to be up to the incredible standards of the United States Hot Rod Association. What a day we have had here on Super Trax with the big, bad, multi-engine, super modified 7,200-pound tractors thundering through the Houston Astrodome, and a little bit of Irish magic being weaved by Dave Walsh and the Irish Challenger team out of Boston, Wisconsin. A huge win for Dave Walsh and the Irish Challenger team over the biggest and the baddest of the modified tractor pullers. And remember what awesome action we saw with the superstars of the U.S. Hot Rod Association Monster Truck Series at the Uniondale, New York, Nassau Coliseum. Dennis Anderson's Gravedigger able to overcome some mechanical difficulties and put away his arch nemesis, Gary Porter and the Carolina Crusher, in what was a heart-pounding final. Gravedigger gets the victory at the Nassau Coliseum. And topping things off with the new Hot Rod Nostalgia class from the Astrodome in Houston, Mike Hoff beating Troy Warschkow, the 32 Ford Coupe over the 34 Ford Roadster in the final. Always variety, always awesome action, always the best in motorsport. Every week with the U.S. Hot Rod Association right here on Super Trax. Till next week, I'm Scott Douglas. We'll see you here on Super Trax.
out.